'cause I see the born of no return. It's just ahead now, it's just ahead now. Can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now see the point of no return. It's just ahead.
Well, good evening. Sorry, I'm getting off to a little bit of a late start. Had a number of issues all come up at the same time, and frankly, it was a little confusing. You know, old guy like me with straw for brains doesn't take much to confuse me, but we are getting off to a late start, but we're getting off anyway. Tonight's broadcast will not be on the Rents Radio Network. It appears that the Monday and Friday Wide Awake News segments have been canceled. Along with it, yours truly. So there will be no Monday or Friday Wide Awake News. It's yet to be seen whether I will continue to broadcast. I'm not 100% certain. I have been offered a Tuesday evening slot. The problem is Tuesdays are somewhat difficult for me. Tuesdays, about 80% of the Tuesday evenings, I find myself having to work rather late, and it's difficult for me to commit to something else on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, or a Thursday because of my money-making pursuits. And like most of you out there, I have a mortgage to pay and various other sundries. I do like to eat, and if you think that my barking at the moon brings any dough, best think again. In any case, it's probably time we get off the ground here. I got quite a bit of nonsense here in the news that I'd like to bellyache about. Tonight I'm going to start with our dear friends in Iraq, Syria, the greater Muslim caliphate, or whatever the heck they decide to call themselves. Our guys here in the United States are referring to them as ISIS or ISIL or something. You know, I don't think they've really decided yet. You know, it's kind of backward. You know, what's a good name for a boogeyman? I got it. Let's call him Al-Qaeda. You know, and boy, they had this Al-Qaeda all canned and ready to go, you know. But when it came time for this new outfit, see, they were all confused because, see, these were the guys that we'd just given a bunch of money to and a bunch of weapons to go kick ass in Syria, and all of a sudden they turn around and they take the money and the guns that they got from us and they start beating up on our guys in Iraq. Well, we couldn't call them the same thing that we were calling them when we were kicking ass in Syria, even though it was the same guys and they were waving the same flag. So they had to come up with a new name real fast, you know, and they couldn't quite get it down pat, you know. So you had ISIS and ISIL floating around out there. I think right now the consensus is they're going to be ISIL, at least until further notice. You will be kept up to date what the name of your latest boogeyman is. Stay tuned. Smart Scarecrow will let you know. Yeah. And now we have a new face of evil. This guy here, his name is Baghdadi. I'm sorry, it sounds like a rapper from South Chicago. Okay, hey, look, I shouldn't make fun of this guy. I should be very serious about this because, you know, this is serious in the news. This guy's name is Baghdadi, and apparently he's a former student of the CIA. He was renditioned and kept in one of these kind of like Guantanamo only. I don't think it was Guantanamo, but he was apparently kept in a hole somewhere and fed crackers or made to eat pork or some such nonsense until he was thoroughly broken by the CIA, and then he was inserted as our man in Syria. Well, apparently he's turned around and bit the hand of his keepers. We just really don't know yet. I mean, come on. We hear the stories coming out of mainstream news, and you got to remember, they were talking this same crap about Osama bin Laden, okay? Osama bin Laden this, Osama bin Laden that, oh. And then there was this guy, Al-Awlaki, that they wound up shooting a Hellfire missile up his butt in Yemen, and they killed his 16-year-old son, too. Well, that guy was having dinner in the White House just a week after 9/11. So at some point or another, he was our best buddy, But then, he said something that somebody didn't like, or he made a convenient target, or Lord only knows what. And all of a sudden, he was the boogeyman of the day. Same thing happened with Osama bin Laden. He was a CIA asset when he was helping the Mujahideen battle the Russians. He was our boy. He was our boy. Yeah, he was our boy. But, as soon as the Russians were kicked out and Taliban was in and we weren't getting the pipeline deals that we wanted, he became the boogeyman of the day. All right. Today, the announced boogeyman, the fellow you're supposed to look under your bed every night to make sure he's not hiding under there, is a fellow by the name of Baghdadi. Now, this is his picture right up above my shoulder here. So every night you make sure you look under your bed and make sure Baghdadi ain't hiding under there, because he's out to get you. He's going to get you, and you're going to have to give up more of your money and more of your personal liberties to make sure that he stays under control. Baghdadi, he is the boogeyman of the day. Yeah, I can't help it. Man, this is bullshit. Absolute bullshit. But, welcome to life in America in the 21st century. Now, something new that you need to be aware of is that, this ISIS or ISIL, whatever the hell they're going to wind up calling themselves, these guys are a little on the crazy side. Well, at least there are factions within this group that are a little on the crazy side. Remember when the Taliban blew up the 1,000-year-old statues of the standing Buddha in Afghanistan? Remember when they did that? The whole world came out. Oh my God, what have they done? This is a treasure that belongs to all of humanity, and these heathens blew it up. Now, whether you were a Buddhist or not, you got to admire the fact that 1,000 years ago, darn near 1,000 years ago, people thought enough of this great holy man that they built this beautiful monument to him. The craftsmanship involved alone set it apart as a very unique human construct. But to the Taliban, it was idol worshiping, okay? And they're kind of hardball when it comes to idol worshiping. Well, this ISIS outfit, they have conquered a city in Iraq called Mosul. Mosul, okay? They are now in control of Mosul and the area around Mosul. Now, you know what's right across the river from Mosul? The ruins of Nineveh, one of the most ancient historic sites. It predates the Babylonian Empire. I mean, we're talking back during the days of the Sumerians. That's how old some of these archaeological sites are. Okay? Yeah. ISIS or ISIL, whatever they're calling themselves, find themselves fully in control of some of humanity's most ancient artifacts. Now, this guy, Baghdadi, paid a visit to the Mosul Museum. It's been closed for years for renovations ever since it was looted, along with many of other Iraq's institutions, during the culturally oblivious American-led invasion of 2003. But the Mosul Museum was on the verge of reopening at last, and a full collection had been stored there. These groups of terrorists, their arrival was a brutal shock with no warning. We were not able to take preventative measures. Yeah. Basically, what this guy Baghdadi did in Syria is whenever he would conquer a small area that had any historic sites, one of the way he funds his organization is by snatching up all the historical goodies and selling them off to private investors. And he has amassed a couple of $1 billion doing this. So he sees these antiquities not as the heritage of humanity, but as a good way to finance the furtherance of his caliphate. So one other little tidbit that we need to be aware of is that the antiquities of Iraq and the surrounding areas are in jeopardy from these guys. And I'm not sure there is an easy answer. I'm not sure there is an easy answer. I mean, from my point of view, I certainly do not want to suggest that the United States pursue a third war in Iraq. I mean, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, time for me to get on the short bus, okay? They ain't gonna fool me a 3rd time. No more U.S. wars in Iraq. Now, help the Iraqis sort out their problems any way we possibly can, short of yet another war in Iraq? Yeah, maybe. I think it'd be real easy to stop these ISIS guys, these ISIL guys, whatever the hell they want to call themselves. I think it'd be real easy to stop them. All we got to do is not pay them anymore. They're our paid help. They're being paid with your tax money via the Saudis. Yeah. I suppose you probably, if you, usually when I'm doing these things, I have to assume that I'm kind of preaching to the choir. And most of you out there, I'm sure, are very much aware that most of the people who have been snatched in this wide net thrown by the National Security Agency, all this spying, this metadata spying and all that. Well, the numbers have come out. 9 out of 10 were innocent of anything. I mean, they were not even the subject of any investigation, but they happened to be in a chat room where somebody of interest was, so the NSA thought it was fair and reasonable to investigate and grab and store information on them, even though their only crime was that guilt by association. They were in the same chat room, or maybe they used the same email hub, or maybe they looked at porn on the same porn server as somebody who was a person of interest. Therefore, by definition, they became a person of interest. Yeah, more information about the National Security Agency spying, and this is stuff that people pretty much assumed, but this fella Snowden was responsible for, kind of rubbing our noses in it. We knew there was a pile of doo-doo associated with the NSA and their spying on everything that moves, talks, or types. We knew that these guys were SOBs and that they were listening to our phone calls and reading our emails and all that. We knew. We knew long before Snowden ever came along. Snowden, though, not just described the pile of poo, told us exactly how much it weighed, exactly what its diameter was, exactly how tall it stood, exactly how many corn kernels per cubic meter there were. But he quite literally grabbed us by the back of the head, stuck our nose in it, and rubbed it. So now we know more than we really wanted to know about just how pervasive, how evil, and how voyeuristic our government has become. For many of us, we scratch our heads trying to figure out, why the hell are they even interested in my Aunt Mary's cookie recipe? What, are they going to, steal my cookie recipe and go into business making better cookies than my grandma? Why are they so interested in scantily clad pictures of my significant other that she might have emailed to me? Yeah. They're just downright voyeuristic. They want to have something on everybody. Okay? A lot of those folks who we consider elite, okay, they like little boys, or they like little girls, or they are perverse in some other fashion. With Bill Clinton, it was cigars and chubby Jewish girls, okay? So, they've all got their twisted perversions, and that's how they're kept under control. People like the NSA and the CIA and a bunch of these other three-letter boys spend a lot of time and a lot of your money making sure that they got the goods on everybody that they can possibly have the goods on, just in case there might come a time when having the goods on them might be profitable. Okay? You may be nobody today. Tomorrow, you might get a wild hair, run for county commissioner, and actually try and do some good. Well, the NSA is going to go back through its files and say, aha, 37 years ago, we got a note here saying that you might have, maybe with somebody else or known somebody who did, and man, we got you now. We got the goods on you, and we're going to blackmail you. You had better toe the company line. Otherwise, everybody in the world is going to know that you dress up in women's underwear every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Or whatever. Stuff that might be a little bit embarrassing, but is certainly not going to change the course of human history. But I don't want anybody to know that. I really don't want anybody to know that I like cigars and chubby Jewish girls, especially my wife. So you see where it's going? So they've tossed out this huge net, and they gather up all this stuff, and they've actually got the audacity to store huge quantities of data about people that are currently not of any interest whatsoever, just on the possibility that at some point in the future they might be persons of interest. That's the game with the three-letter boys. They don't care that you're not somebody significant right now. They don't care that having a little bit of dirt on you isn't really profitable right now. Disk space has become very inexpensive. They can afford to save that data on the odd chance that at some point in the future, you, or maybe somebody you're related to, or somebody you're close to, might be a person that they want to have some form of control over, and that material might have blackmail value. Don't you just love it? That's the game they're playing. And you bet it's bullshit, but it is what it is. Well, you know, this past week we celebrated Independence Day. And, you know, I was pleased, you know, because I remember, I did a broadcast with Charlie McGrath, and we were both kind of, I was crying in my beer because around here we can't get any really good fireworks. You know, a bunch of little old ladies in tennis shoes got everything here in Virginia made illegal. So I think at this point we're allowed to have, you know, those smoking snake things, and I think we're allowed to have sparklers. I think that's about it. And sparklers are questionable. And Charlie was telling me how, you know, where he lives out in Montana, they can still get some pretty good stuff. You know, they get stuff that goes whoosh bang, you know, the stuff that everybody really wants to see on the 4th of July. Well, I'm pleased to announce that apparently folks living around my neighborhood managed to get to South Carolina or Pennsylvania, because, man, they must have come back with trunk loads full of the goodies, because there was stuff going airborne in my neighborhood the whole night. It was a beautiful display. I didn't have to go down to the Washington Monument. I didn't have to go to one of the military bases or out to, you know, Fairfax City or anything like that. I could just sit in my front yard and watch some really good fireworks shot off right here in my neighborhood. So obviously, you know, a lot of folks in my neighborhood basically said to the little ladies in tennis shoes and those who would take all the fun out of a solemn celebration that historically has always been celebrated with some really good fireworks. You know, the rocket's red glare and our flag was still there type of thing. You know, it's symbolic of that event. So yeah, I got to see some pretty good fireworks right here in my neighborhood. Thank you to all my neighbors for putting on one hell of a display. But, you know, as much fun as I had on the 4th of July, wasn't too much fun for a lot of folks in Chicago. Did you hear the news? You know, Chicago, the home of some of the most repressive gun control laws in the country. You know, that's where Rahm Emanuel went to be mayor or whatever, you know, or governor or God only knows what. You know, I think he's, you know, the towel boy at the gay bathhouse, but that's neither here nor there. They do have some of the most repressive gun control laws in the country in Chicago and the surrounding Cook County area. But from Thursday through Saturday, it appears that there were a number of shooting incidents. Some reports are saying as many as 82 people might have been shot. And I've seen varying reports. I've seen varying numbers. So I know, you know, folks in the chat room are going to be saying, oh, it wasn't 82, it was only 64. Well, I probably saw that report too. The most I saw reported was that 82 individuals in Chicago had been shot in a variety of gunfights, and that the highest number I've seen reported was that 14 of those 82 were killed. It appears a couple of teenagers were among the dead. They were apparently confronted by police, ordered to drop their weapons. They failed to drop their weapons in a timely fashion and were killed by multiple gunshots from the police. One of the boys was 14, one was 16 apparently. Now, in past incidences, on closer examination, it's been found that, you know, the kids had BB guns or water guns or something like that, you know, but this time the 14-year-old and 16-year-old actually did have firearms. So I'm not sure I can really find any fault with the police over that incident. I mean, frankly, I don't care if you're 10 years old or you're 100 years old. If you're pointing a firearm at me and it looks like you might be getting ready to pull the trigger, I can tell you that if I have the opportunity to defend myself, I will. And I guess the cops in that particular situation were probably justified in taking the lives of those kids. But most of the people who died, most of the 14 people who died, they died over silliness. They died over, you know, somebody displaying gang signs, somebody leaving an open bottle of booze on the roof of somebody else's car. I mean, silliness, stuff that certainly should not carry a death sentence. Okay? I mean, when life is so cheap that we can justify taking a life because they did, you know, some kind of weird gang sign or because they left an open can of beer on the roof of your car. I mean, yes, such things might be annoying. They might be intimidating. They might piss you off. But since when is such a thing punishable by death? And that seems to have been the types of incidents that were getting people killed in Chicago over the 4th of July weekend. Now, a lot of people are going to chalk it up, well, you know, guns are just too easy to get. You know, we need to take guns away from all this. You know, this is Chicago we're talking about here. I mean, in theory, none of these people was supposed to have a gun anyway, okay? There was one incident where apparently somebody had a concealed carry permit. They were actually carrying a concealed weapon with a permit, fired back at gunmen who started shooting at his group and apparently did seriously wound at least 2 of the gunmen. You know, but for the most part, this was just random gang violence, probably caused by, well, you know, they're shooting fireworks off down the way, so nobody's going to notice me popping off a few rounds with my pistol. A lot of the people who were shot and wounded were just sitting on their porches, minding their own business. What? Hey, there goes a good one up in the air. Whoa, what the hell was that? I just took a hit. You know, I mean, they're just sitting on their patios and sitting out in their front yards watching the fireworks displays going off in the distance, and they start taking gunfire. I mean, you got to hope that what this was just too much booze and bravado. You just hope that people would have a little bit more common sense. But obviously some folks in Chicago don't have any more common sense than that. There's a little news out of Fukushima. Remember Fukushima? You know, it's easy to forget. It's very easy to forget. I mean, that was last year's news or the year before's news, right? I mean, that's old hat. It's over and done with, right? Right? All over with? Well, I'll tell you, this article just about got past me. This article is actually dated June 13th, so, you know, this is almost a month old. But it just came up on my radar last week. Japan will introduce legislation this year to ratify a controversial treaty backed by General Electric Corporation and other atomic plant manufacturers seeking protection from damage claims caused by nuclear accidents. Huh? Yeah. What's going to happen here? And apparently, I've heard a couple different versions of this story. But the most interesting version I've heard is that apparently the Obama administration is over in Japan twisting arms, trying to force the Japanese into signing this treaty. The treaty would basically indemnify General Electric, who, by the way, has not paid taxes in the United States in many years, okay? We all think of General Electric, it's a good American company, right? Wrong. They have not been an American company in a long, long time. They are an international corporation owned by major international financial interests. General Electric is no longer that friendly employer of many, many Americans that it used to be. General Electric is part of the problem, not part of the solution. General Electric was the designer and manufacturer of the plants that failed so miserably in Fukushima. And you betcha, they're a little bit concerned that they might be held responsible for the environmental catastrophe caused by those nuclear facilities' failure. Obama is over in Japan, twisted the arm of the Japanese, saying, here, sign this here treaty with us indemnifying General Electric so you can't sue them for damages, and we'll back you with U.S. taxpayer money instead. Yeah, that's the deal that they're working on. So General Electric isn't responsible for Fukushima. You are. Open your wallet a little wider, Mr. American taxpayer. Ante up just a little bit more, please. We need just a little bit more of your money. See, y'all were evil and you wouldn't give us that there carbon tax we wanted. We really thought we could save the whales and those poor polar bears. They're drowning out there because of global warming, and we really needed that carbon tax. You wouldn't give it to us, but now we need a Fukushima tax. We really need, we got to have a Fukushima tax. We signed a treaty with Japan. Yeah, get ready. You are going to become responsible for the damage to the entire world's ecosystem caused by Fukushima. So, once again, we learned this with BP. We learned this when BP destroyed the Gulf of Mexico. We learned this when the major banks destroyed the U.S. economy, put so many people out of work, caused so many people to lose their homes, a catastrophe that is still going on today. I mean, if you think the damage done to the Gulf of Mexico is all over with, if you think the damage done in Fukushima is all over with, if you think the damage done by the major financial interests on Wall Street is all over with, the only thing I can think of is you must be employed by the government, because you're still getting that paycheck thinking, well, gee, if I need a raise, we'll just tax those sons of bitches out there a little bit more. Because, our buddies, the big bankers and BP and General Electric, why, they're too big to toss in jail. But those suckers that pay their taxes every month, well, if they don't ante up, we can throw them in jail. So, y'all just open your wallets just a little bit bigger, because Uncle Sam needs a raise. He hadn't had a raise, and the cost of living is up, and he needs a raise really bad. So y'all are just going to have to pay more. Yes, ante up. I wish that was a joke, okay? I tried to make it, somewhat humorous. So, a little bit of sugar makes the medicine easier to go down or something like that. But, the fact of the matter is, that's the way they think. I mean, my God, if you held General Electric responsible for their equipment failure in Japan that has basically polluted the Pacific Ocean, we don't know how many species have gone extinct because of radioactivity. We do know that, there's a lot of damage done by Fukushima. We know that U.S. citizens out on the West Coast are being exposed to radioactive particulates that are drifting over on the winds and on the seas from Fukushima. We really don't know yet the true cost of Fukushima. We really don't know yet the true cost of what BP did in the Gulf of Mexico. We still don't know what the real exposure of the United States is to all the derivatives and other fancy financial instruments that have been passed around from one pile to another by these goofballs up on Wall Street, we don't know yet just how badly on the hook you and me might be for all their malfeasance. All we really know is that those boys are too big to jail. You're not. It's a big club. You and me, we're not members. Gotta love it. Did you know that the United States of America has just surpassed Saudi Arabia as the largest oil-producing nation in the world? Yeah. Here's another interesting factoid. If not for the dramatic increases in the production of crude oil and its export, the United States balance of trade would be worse than it is. The only bright spot in what we would call heavy industry, your manufacturing, mining, your stuff actually being produced. So much of the economy of the United States nowadays is piles of money being moved by bankers from one pile to another. I mean, it's gotten to the point where that's almost half of the total economic activity in the United States is bankers moving money from one pile to another, and they count that as part of the gross domestic product. We don't make things that people buy anymore. People do not buy television sets and refrigerators and washers and dryers and, God forbid, General Motors automobiles that are made here in the United States. They don't buy that stuff anymore because it's not made here anymore. It's made overseas. But the United States is pumping more oil today than Saudi Arabia. And we're exporting most of it. Well, why? I mean, what's the deal? I mean, I thought there was an energy crisis here in the United States. I thought we really needed that gas. Why are we shipping it overseas? Well, see, the fact of the matter is, even though the United States is now one of the world's, actually the world's leading producer of crude oil and the largest exporter of crude oil in the world, we just surpassed Saudi Arabia. It was, Saudi Arabia with Russia coming, sneaking right up on their tail. Well, we snuck up on both of them and boom. So why are we exporting all this oil? I thought we needed that oil. I mean, for crying out loud, we're paying $4 a gallon for gasoline, aren't we? I mean, we don't, if we got so damn much oil, how come there's not plenty of gas and the price comes down? Well, see, here's the deal. First of all, they need to sell that oil overseas to help balance the trade, because without that oil being exported, the balance of trade would really scare you. It would scare anybody who is even thinking about buying U.S. instruments like Treasury bonds. So, selling that oil overseas makes us look like, we've got a semi-halfway sort of kind of almost decent balance of trade. And the fact of the matter is, because of economic pressures, Americans have been moving in, these tiny little fuel-efficient cars, and we don't need that much gas anymore. I mean, frankly, apparently we are refining more gasoline than what Americans are interested in buying. Wait a minute. Economics school, supply and demand. I got too much of something. I got to get rid of it because, gasoline does have a fairly short life expectancy. I can only keep it in. I really need to sell that. Let's see, how do I know, I drop the price, right? Well, I don't want to do that. That's nasty. No, I really want the price to go up. Well, if I get rid of my surplus gasoline by selling it to somebody, and yeah, that's what we've been doing. We've been selling refined oil products like gasoline and diesel fuel. We've been exporting that. Okay, so now the supply and demand issue has gotten back kind of in sync. But, Americans are buying a lot less gasoline nowadays. They're buying, these little bitty, economy cars, We, now we got another problem. Because they're not buying as much gasoline, the highway trust fund's going to go broke. We can't afford to fix the potholes in the bridges. We can afford all kinds of Hellfire missiles to blow up brown people, but we can't afford to fix the potholes and the bridges. That's what they're telling us. And yes, now they're coming at us telling us that because you evil Americans have switched over to these tiny little cars, you got rid of all those damned SUVs, and y'all became tree-hugging hippies, and you're driving around these darn fuel-efficient cars. You're not buying nearly as much gasoline as you used to buy. We ain't getting that gas tax no more. And it was that gas tax we were using to fix the potholes and keep the bridges in shape. So now that, because we don't have any money in the Highway Trust Fund, you got a couple choices, Mr. American. Either you can redo the suspension on your car every year because we can't afford to fix those potholes because you ain't buying enough gas. Or you can let us raise the gas tax so that, gasoline gets up to $5 a gallon. Well, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. We started this argument. I got to get back to the beginning here. Sometimes it helps. I am an old Southern boy with straw for brains. Let me get back to the beginning. All right. The United States is the biggest oil producer in the world. Okay? Saudis, eat my shorts. Okay? We are producing more oil than the Saudi Arabians. We're producing so much gasoline that we are the world's largest exporter of refined petroleum products. And because we are very sensible and very frugal, we have done the environmentally sane thing. And we've gone out and we've bought tiny little economical cars, so we are not wasting as much gasoline as we used to. And that's what makes this gasoline available so that it can be exported at a sizable profit, I might add. But because we're not buying as much gasoline and they're not making as much money off of us in gas taxes as they used to make, they got to increase the gas tax so that the net result is, even though we are the biggest producer of oil in the world, we are the biggest exporter of refined petroleum products in the world, and even though we have been very religious about our move into smaller, more economical automobiles, even though we've done all the right things, we still have to pay more in taxes. Look, I got a radical solution to this problem, all right? I've got a radical solution to this problem. It's called the 1956 Cadillac Fleetwood Eldorado. Had a 400 and some odd cubic inch engine, had a carburetor on it so big you could stick your fist down on it, got about 2 miles to a gallon of gas, okay? Let's get these bad boys back into production in Detroit, please. Made out of American steel, American iron, and American rubber. Let's get those things out there on the road, and let's get those damn things burning up some gasoline so that our poor government can get some frickin' gas tax. Yeah, it's bullshit. What are you going to do? I mean, if you don't laugh at some of this stuff, you cry. So, yeah, it's bullshit. It's bullshit, Doesn't matter what you do, their solution is you pay more in tax. Oh, man, I'll tell you. ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing. What does that mean to you? What does ethnic cleansing mean to you? You know, they're doing ethnic cleansing in Zimbabwe right now. You know, the head poobah of Zimbabwe has made an announcement saying that, you know, if your skin is got less melanin in it, then I'm not sure where they make the cutoff. I don't know if the cutoff is Kareem Jabbar or, you know, they're going to have to be more specific. I mean, how much melanin in my skin do I have to be able to buy a piece of land in Zimbabwe? Well, in Ukraine, the ethnic cleansing is between Germanics and Slavics. Okay, the nation of Ukraine is inhabited by people who have German heritage and by people who have Slavic heritage. The Slavs are those who are most akin with Russia, and of course the Germanic people, they're more closely akin with Austria and Hungary and Germany. Right now, the guys who are in charge of Ukraine, ostensibly, the ones who, you know, sit in the presidential chair, are of the Germanic tribe. And they seem to think that the Slavic peoples of the East, who have a heritage that's more closely associated with Russia, need to be exterminated. And starting early last week and going right through this weekend, they were working really hard on it. So who are these people? You know, the people who are being impacted, as in any war, are just average folks. I mean, these are people who got up in the morning, went to work, you know, maybe they drove a milk truck, maybe they farmed, maybe they, you know, were government workers, whatever. You know, they just average Joe Schmuck, just like you. They roll out of the rack in the morning. They got a job to do. They go do the job. They try and make a little bit of money so they can bring home the bacon, feed mama and the kids. Okay? They're just average folks, just like you, just like me. Only right now, they find themselves in the crosshairs because they're Slavic or they're Germanic or whatever. But, you know, they're declared the enemy and need to be ethnically cleansed from territory that the folks in Kiev seem hell-bent on keeping control over, even at the cost of human life. Now, there's been a number of attempts at making some sort of a peace. I mean, obviously, the obvious answer is to have a partitioning of Ukraine. You can't just go in and partition a country. Well, you know, if you've got two groups who are at odds with each other, this is not that unusual. Now, back when the Slavic people had control over Kiev, there was this Germanic minority living in the western portion of Ukraine who, you know, claimed that, you know, they were the oppressed minority. But bottom line is, you know, people didn't really hassle them. There was a lot of intermarrying between the two groups. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, kind of like Ireland, okay, where you had the Catholics and you had the Protestants. And, you know, I mean, the people of Ukraine got along fine, both under the Soviet Union and after the collapse of the Soviet Union, right up until this rather radical separatist group tossed out the elected government. They basically installed their own Germanic-oriented government as a coup d'etat. But even though it was indeed a coup d'etat, no question about it, they were immediately recognized and acknowledged as the government of Ukraine by all the NATO powers. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting how that happened? The people of the East objected because they saw what these guys, you know, these guys were fascists. I mean, their way of doing things was this fascist IMF-inspired austerity and more for the bankers and less for the people type of arrangement, kind of like what we've got here in the United States. And they didn't want any part of that. They saw more opportunity in hooking up with Russia. Okay. Well, that wasn't part of the game plan. When the IMF and the big bankers and NATO conquer a nation, they expect them to stay conquered. Ain't none of this, moving on somewhere else. So we do have an issue now with what appears to be a full-fledged civil war going on in Ukraine. Yeah, it looks like Russia is supplying some weapons to the guys in the east, and yeah, it kind of looks like the United States and its allies are supplying weapons to the guys in the west. So in practical terms, it appears to be a proxy war between NATO interests and Russian interests. Let's just hope it doesn't go ballistic, literally. Well, let's see, what's my time? I'm at 50 minutes. I think I've run for longer than I would normally have run as a Rents broadcast. I may have to wrap it up here shortly, but I do want to get one more cute piece out here. Now this is just for giggles. Sometimes, the news is so depressing. I try to find at least one or two pieces that, kind of lighten it up a little bit. Well, in a town called Norfolk, Nebraska. Is it Norfolk, Nebraska? Yeah, Norfolk. I think of Norfolk, Virginia. Of course, that's close to me. But yeah, apparently Norfolk, Nebraska, a float with an outhouse and the words "Obama Presidential Library" on it in the 4th of July parade in downtown Norfolk. A member of the parade committee said the float, which received criticism from a city councilman and the Nebraska Democratic Party, among others, was the most popular one in the parade. All right, come on. You didn't find that funny? You're not going to laugh at that? Come on. They got a truck with an outhouse. On the side of the outhouse, it says Obama's Presidential Library. And it was the most popular float in the 4th of July parade. You did not find that funny? Well, to be honest with you, I was surprised that a lot of people came out and said, "Oh, that's racist. That's racist." Oh, come on. If they'd have done that to George Bush, all the black people would have been laughing like crazy while they ate a big hunk of chicken and some watermelon. Now, get over it, okay? This guy is the President of the United States. He has done a miserable job. And when I call him down on it for being an asshole and a lousy president, probably the worst president this country has seen since Jimmy Carter, when I call him down on it, I'm a freaking racist? Look, I got people in my family that are more black than he is. Get over it. Oh, boy. And one more little tidbit. Earlier in the day I was talking about potholes. Well, a very creative photographer has done some marvelous things with pictures of potholes. And I grabbed this one here for you just to, give you a little bit of a chuckle. Yes, this guy is pulling out a big mouth bass from a pothole out front of his Hey, you might not think that's funny, but, as somebody who enjoys bass fishing, I thought that one was a rip-roaring hoot. I thought that was a great joke. In any case, that's it for tonight's Barking at the Moon. we'll have to see whether there will be another installment next week or not. I am told that I'm being offered a Tuesday time slot. To be honest with you, I've got to think about that because Tuesday's a tough day for me. I'm quite often working until 9, 10, 11 o'clock Tuesday nights. Monday is about the only day of the week I have available to do this. But seeing as how I don't have to worry about commercials and all the other nonsense associated with broadcasting on rents, I will now address the studio audience and see if there are any important issues in the news that I neglected to cover. Well, yeah, this is the after show. The show's wrapped. For those of you who didn't catch it, the fishing in the pothole joke was the last bit for the evening. I'm done with the regular broadcast. We're now doing the after show. So if anybody in the audience has any the last hour was the after show. Okay. What news? Yeah, ain't no news. Return. Zero, I tell you, Thursdays are tough for me too. What I want to know is how come nobody else has picked up and started doing an alternative energy broadcast. I mean, I really thought by now. So Zero, I thought maybe you'd pick up the torch. It was really somebody else's turn on that one. I'm not sure I really want to do it anymore. To be honest with you, I'm kind of burnt out on it. I did that for 5 years. How about Sterling's new? Well, I have heard I didn't know anything about a divorce. Sterling, I hope Sterling's not getting a divorce. I wouldn't wish that on him. I have heard a couple of Sterling shows. Some of the stuff Sterling covers is not my cup of tea. He may indeed have some that I enjoy. I'm sure, kind of like my shows. Some of Sterling shows will be good, some of them will be, I don't know. We'll just have to see. Nobody else is doing because nobody has anything. Well, I don't think I ever had anything anyway, but we seem to find a way to do a show anyway. Somebody out here saying I need a good laugh. Well, look, I tried to provide a little bit of comic relief. I mean, to be honest with you, the hard news out there is so bad. I mean, let's face it. If you get all wrapped up in the news, you could get all depressed and start drinking. But the only relief valve I have for it is laugh at it. See, when the powers that be do everything they can do to make your life miserable and rub your nose in that pile of doo-doo, and you get up and you laugh and you sing and you dance anyway and just enjoy life regardless of how much poop they throw at you, it drives them crazy. It drives them absolutely insane. I'm hoping I'm going to drive those sons of bitches so insane laughing at them that they will eventually just go nuts and commit suicide. Oh, outsider, I'm sorry to hear that. I really would not have wished that on Sterling. But I don't know. Believe me, I have been married to the same woman for going on 40 years now, and if you think it has all been peaceful bliss, I can tell you that there's been a lot of times during my marriage where it has been peaceful bliss. But we managed to hold it together anyway, and because we have kind of a traditional marriage. Come hell or high water, we're married. Married is married. That's it. Not everybody feels that way. People seem to think, you change your marriage the way some people change their socks. I don't know. It's difficult for me to difficult for me to pass judgment on somebody else. I would not have wished a divorce on Sterling or anybody. But in any case, any other hot news items? Any hot news items that I missed that I did not cover in the last week's news? I mean, what was reported in the news that just really, really, really pissed you off that I didn't cover? Anything? I don't envy anybody getting back on. I don't know. I think one of the reasons why my wife would not want to get divorced is she wouldn't want to get back into the dating scene because she'd have to shave her legs. I'll let her speak for herself on that. But I mean, my God, if I had to take a bath every day and brush my teeth every day, I'd get old fast. All of a sudden become tied to personal grooming. Get back in the dating scene. Yeah, right. No, thank you. True. Crypt is old news. Yeah, it really is. Alrighty, guys. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I've still got to package it and post it to YouTube. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with the ongoing schedule. I've got to think about this real hard, whether or not I'm actually going to be able to do a Tuesday evening broadcast. But I can assure you that if I'm going to be broadcasting live on Tuesday, I will tweet. I'll do my tweet if you subscribe to, or I think if you follow at Smart Scarecrow on Twitter, you will be informed about any further scheduling changes. But right now it looks like if I'm going to do a live broadcast associated with Wide Awake News, it will be on Tuesday evenings. I just have to figure out whether or not I can be available on Tuesday evenings to do it. But for now, I'm going to have to sign off. Hope you all enjoyed tonight's presentation. And you betcha, we'll talk to you whenever.
Love of the turn around. None of us are leaving here alive. Whoa, what will you say? What will you say? And what will you do? What will you do? What will you do? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn around? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you won't you turn around?